David grew up in a small town where life was simple, but every day was a struggle.
His parents worked tirelessly to make ends meet, yet poverty was a shadow that loomed over them, a constant reminder of the limitations placed on their lives.
Despite this, David was determined to carve out a better future for himself. When he got the opportunity to move to the city for a job, he didn't hesitate. The decision to leave was bittersweet. His parents had sacrificed so much for him, but he knew he couldn't stay. The city was everything he had dreamed of, bustling, full of life, and overflowing with opportunities. It wasn't long before he found success in his career. With success came a new life, new friends, new routines, and eventually, a new love.
He met Sarah, a kind-hearted woman who embraced the city as he did. They married and soon welcomed 2 children into their lives.
David had built the life he always wanted, far from the poverty he had known. As the years passed, David's new life in the city flourished. He and Sarah raised their children in comfort, far removed from the struggles he had grown up with. However, as his children grew older, they began asking about their grandparents, curious about the family they had never met.
"Why don't we ever visit them, Daddy?" his daughter asked one evening, her big brown eyes full of innocence.
David's heart tightened. He had never told his children about the life he had left behind, the hardship, the poverty. He wanted to protect them from that world, to keep them in the bubble of comfort and security he had worked so hard to create.
Without thinking, he replied, They don't want to meet. They're busy with their own lives."
Dad, why don't we ever see them? I found some old letters from Grandpa in your drawer. They don't sound like they don't care. They sound like they miss you. Us.
David was caught off guard. His son's words cut deep, slicing through the walls he had built to protect himself. The letters were a secret he had kept hidden, unread for years, afraid of what they might say, afraid of the guilt they would bring. Tears welled up in David's eyes, and he realized he couldn't keep lying. He owed his children the truth, and he owed his parents the love they had never stopped giving him. "David, I'm sorry. I lied because I was ashamed. I didn't want you to see the life I came from. I didn't want you to see me as I was. But your grandparents, they love you. They've always loved you." His son's expression softened, but there was a deep sadness in his eyes.
Then let's go see them, Dad. Let's go meet them.
David nodded, knowing it was time to face the past he had run from. It was time to make amends. The next week, David, Sarah, and their children made the journey back to his hometown. The drive was long, and David's anxiety grew with each mile. When they finally arrived, the small house where he had grown up looked just as he remembered, humble, worn, but filled with memories. As they approached the front door, David hesitated, his heart pounding. Then the door creaked open, and there stood his parents, older now, but with the same warmth in their eyes. For a moment, no one spoke. The air was thick with emotion. Then his mother rushed forward, tears streaming down her face as she embraced David.
"Oh, my boy, you've come home."
David held her tight, tears of his own falling freely. "David, I'm so sorry, Mom. I should have come back sooner. I should have brought them sooner." His father joined the embrace, and soon, Sarah and the children were pulled into the circle of love, a family reunited at last. That day, David's children met their grandparents for the first time, and the bond that was forged was unbreakable. As they sat together, sharing stories and laughter, David realized that he hadn't just come home to his parents. He had come home to himself. The past, with all its hardships, was a part of him, and it was something to be cherished, not hidden. From that day on, they visited often, and David's children grew up knowing the love of their grandparents. The lie that had once kept them apart was gone, replaced by the truth and the love that had always been there, waiting to be found.